What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Agent Authority podcast. Today, I have a special guest. He is an investor all the way from Gainesville, Florida. His name is Victor Eurocheck. He is on track this year to do 20 flips during COVID. So let's welcome him to the show, everybody. Welcome, Victor.
Thank you so much. Appreciate you having me.
Of course, man. So I right off want to say that I think it's amazing that you were able to do 20 flips during COVID. And I think most people would be like, how'd you do that? So before we dive into that, why don't you just introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got into the business, what made you choose flipping, and really just tell us how you got started.
Oh, happy to. So luckily for me, real estate is a family business. So I've been doing it for a long time since I was young. So I used to live back in Utah. My family bought a lot of properties in a small town in Utah. And when I was 14, like they would have me do like little handyman work. Like I'd be helping out on the properties on the weekend. Like here's a hammer, taking all these nails, or here's this, like help us demo it out. So they would give me that. And for that work, I'd make like $20 in a weekend. And back then I was like, 14, I was like, this is amazing. This is great.
Living the life.
So like $20. Oh my God. So that was the family business for a while. And as I slowly grew up, I wanted to depart from that and do my own thing. So I tried a ton of businesses, home services. I tried healthcare. I tried, online businesses, and eventually just kind of made my way back to real estate. I really enjoy this. I really like doing this. It's lucrative if you know what you're doing. So got back into it, went full time for real estate about 2 years ago. And in the interim from then till now, tried a ton of stuff. I tried like rentals. I tried Airbnb. I tried like a lease option, tried the flips. Honestly, just like the flips the most. I like the elegance of a flip. So you're in, you're out. There's a before, there's an after. You get a big check at the closing. You walk away. You don't have to deal with the house anymore. So I like that sort of setup where you don't have to. You just move on and you're good to go, and you can continue doing volume. So that's what I've been doing, and been just doing more and more flips, and I really enjoy it.
That's amazing, man. I want to congratulate you just on the fact that you were able to do 20 flips this year. And I really wanted to dive into someone who's thinking about getting into real estate investing, someone like myself, and I'm sure a lot of people out there as well, who want to buy their first property but aren't really sure what to do in terms of, do they need good credit? How much money do they need? Do they even need money? Like all these things. What would you give advice to someone who's thinking about doing it and really just needs that next step to just push them into going full time and just going for it? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. No, I'm with you there. So I think like the biggest thing is people get into this analysis paralysis, and they just get overwhelmed like with all this information, like trying to understand like what to do next. So I recommend like first decide your strategy, like before you're going to even get into something, because you trying to do a fix and flip is going to be different than you trying to do a rental, or you trying to do a burr. So it's going to be a little bit different for each of those. So I'd recommend like choose your strategy first, like what you want to do. I always recommend, so people say like, hey, I want to do rentals. Why should I do flips? I recommend like the following strategy, like do a flip, do a rental, do a flip, do a rental, in that order, in that sequence. And that way, instead of like running out of cash, which you would with if you just did a rental first, like you're generating cash with the flip, you can put that into rental as a down payment, and then you can do another flip, and then you just do that forever basically, but you don't get stopped. If you do it the other way, you do rental first, you've put all your money into it, now you have to save up for your next rental, you have to save up for your next one, or get cash flow, and that might take a while, so you're stuck for a couple years. So instead of getting stuck, let's just change up the sequence. You can do both, do flips and rentals. So that's what I recommend first. Just know your strategy, kind of know what you're trying to accomplish. If you want passive income, great. If you want to do real estate full time, just really understand what you're working at first.
I actually really like that concept of doing a flip so that you could get the cash to then go and do a rental, so that you're able to hold on to the property, maybe have something left over from that initial deal that you could possibly even go and do a flip at the same time. But what do you say to someone who has $10,000 but doesn't necessarily have great credit? Is there a way for them to leverage the fact that they have cash with no credit? Is there a way to how would you tell someone who's just out of college, has some money saved up from work, or has been working for a couple of years and just saved up some money so that they could go and buy their first property. And let's just stick with flips for now because it's something that you do mostly. And we'll talk about flips. We could talk about doing rentals and all that other stuff possibly on another episode. But I really want to dive into like someone who's brand new, thinking about going in. What would you say should be like that thing that they should just pull the trigger and do it when it comes to doing a flip, when they're not sure where to get money or credit, along those lines?
I think the biggest thing, because this is how I got started. I got started with bad credit and no money. I think a lot of people focus on the money aspect of it wrongly. I think the biggest thing to focus on is the deal. So if you have a good enough deal, you'll get the money. So don't even worry about that. So focus on getting a good deal. And how I did it for my first deal. So I found a good deal and found a good transaction. I was more of like the sweat equity component, like the boots on the ground, the person doing the hustling to get the deal and to help it, be a success in terms of flip. So I actually found a money partner. So I had found someone who was willing to put in the funds and then we would split the profit. But because the deal was so good, like there was enough for us to split, there's something there for us to work with. So even if you don't have money or credit, like don't let that stop you from taking that next step forward. Because the biggest thing is having a good deal. If you have a good deal, people will throw money at you.
Yeah. So you're saying if you just find a deal that's a good deal in terms of flipping it, renting it, or anything, you're saying that if you find a deal, it's very easy to go and find the person who has money. So why don't we talk about that for a second? What are some of the things? Because I know a lot of people are always told they're like, oh, don't use hard money lenders. They're going to charge you crazy rates on interest and all that stuff. And you have to pay it back in a short period of time. So like, how did you go about doing that first deal? Why don't we talk about that? How you found a deal, found a partner, and let it all go through. Why don't we dive deep into that?
For sure. So let's talk about the deal first. So I got the deal under contract. It was here in Gainesville, and we bought it for 105. We were going to put in about 20, 30, and then sell for about 170. So good flip, decent spread, decent margin. Like there's room to play with, and it's a good deal. So start with that. Start with a good deal, and then I recommend when you are getting started trying to source the funding. You probably know more people than you think who are interested in real estate and want to get started. So I would source your financing from your network first. So this is friends, family, colleagues, just people you know. A lot of people have money sitting in the bank and it's making 0.001% interest. And rather than that, why don't they put it to use with real estate, which is a real tangible asset, and then they can split the profits with you. So that's how I see it. That's how I'd recommend getting started. You'd be surprised like how many people have funds sitting around and they just don't know what to do with it. And then you can be that conduit. Like you can be that person. Like I know what to do with it. I've got this great deal. Let's put your money to use. And instead of it making $10 of interest in a year, let's have it make 10,000, 15,000 if you split it 50-50. So the world really opens up. But the biggest thing, just remember, you got to start with the deal. You got to have something that has potential.
That's amazing. That's really, really good advice. I actually have heard that before where people say that you never know what your database really is thinking about doing. So you might as well just reach out to it. When I first started in real estate, everyone said they're like, go through your phone and call every person, let them know you're in the business. It's like, you'll be shocked at how many people are interested in doing business with you. Mm-hmm. And it really is true. That was how I got my first buyer. Was literally just scrolled through my entire phone, ended up coming across a friend who I went to college with, and it worked out. So I definitely understand where you're coming from with that. And it makes sense that I would even say, to your point, and I'm sure this makes sense, is even reach out to your parents' friends, your sister's friends, your brother's friends, really, because you never know who's thinking about doing anything in real estate. So I really wanted to circle back to what you said about Utah and how you grew up there. And I really wanted to understand, how did you get from Utah to Florida, and are you upset about how well the real estate market is doing in Utah this year?
No, that's funny. So while I was like searching for my business, because I mentioned like I was trying a ton of stuff, I moved across the country a couple of times. So I went from Utah to Nashville, back to Utah, up to Chicago, and then I think eventually back to Utah. Eventually what happened was I was kind of in between projects, and my brother was here at University of Florida, and he was working on his PhD. So while I was kind of in between projects, I figured he invited me down. He said, you can stay with me for free for a couple months. Back then I was in between, just trying to figure out what I wanted to do next, and decided to come down to Florida, and I've loved it ever since.
That's
I can't,
amazing.
for me, I can't live back in Chicago. I can't go with the -5, -10 winters.
You can't go back to freezing cold.
I can't do that. Here it hits 30, 40, and it's freezing for me. Um, but yeah, just decided to move here and started to pick up real estate locally, and it's been fantastic ever since.
That's great. Gainesville is North Florida. Where's Gainesville?
So Gainesville is north central Florida. What's really cool, we're in the center of everything. So we're about an hour and a half from Tampa, hour and a half from Orlando, hour and a half Jacksonville, about 2 hours from Tallahassee. So
That's amazing.
You want to think of middle north Florida.
That's great. That's a sick location.
Mm-hmm.
So when you do flips, I wanted to talk more about the difference between doing a single family versus a two family, and if you have any experience in doing one or the other, or if you see a difference in doing one or the other. So why don't you take it?
For sure. Yeah, I've only done single family residences, flips. Never done a multifamily one. I think that's just a different animal. I've never gone into it. I've tried to. I think last year I was looking at picking up a fourplex, and we were going to do something like that. It didn't end up working out, but just the single family. It just seems like the single family is most accessible. I've done like single family, condos, townhomes, mobile homes, and gotten started there. I think our basic premise is buy a place that needs work, fix it up, and then sell it to somebody like a buyer, like a homeowner. And that's how to do it. I've never done multifamily. That'd be like selling more to an investor, and I'm sure it's the same principles, but it's just something I've never really touched on.
Got it. What do you see as a difference between doing a single family versus a condo versus a mobile home? Because I actually just found out this year that the mobile home flip business is legit, and that there's a guy who works out of my office.
Uh-huh.
He sells around 60 of them a year. Well, he has an investor who only does mobile homes. It's insane. And I never really understood how you can make so much money on a mobile home. Like we're talking about RVs, right?
Basically, yeah. So I actually really don't see a difference between the three: condos, houses, mobile homes. It's all numbers for me. So as long as the numbers make sense, I'll buy it. Doesn't change too much, if it's one versus the other. For mobile homes, I think the biggest thing for people to understand is it's like a mobile home. It's a house, but it's tied to land. So the first one I did was 5 acres. So it's a mobile home on 5 acres. Second one I did was a mobile home on 1 acre. So it's not like a mobile home park where you rent the lot. It's more like a house, like a manufactured house on acreage is how I look at it. Something nicer than an RV, something like that. It's not necessarily still mobile. They typically tie it down to the land. So it's it's not still on wheels. But it's more like the design of the house is what it looks like. But it's a legitimate business. I've done 3 or 4 and working on more mobile home flips, and same basics. You can get, at least for Florida, you can get FHA, you can get conventional financing, get all the different types of financing.
That's amazing. I didn't know that. So I actually was thinking about it. I was like, do you see a difference in any of the three for someone who's thinking about doing their first deal? Or again, it's literally just about finding the deal, and if it's in a mobile home, go for it. If it's in a condo, go for it. If it's a single family, go for it.
I think that's exactly the right attitude. Just go for it as long as the numbers work. For example, let's say someone were to offer you a mobile home and they're going to give it to you for free. Would you ask like, oh, what type of property is it? You're just like, yes, great, I'm in. Or if it was a condo or anything like that, if they gave it to you for free, I don't think you'd be like, well, no.
Yeah, I wouldn't care.
So, yeah.
Free place to live.
So that's how I look at it. I think with condos and mobile homes, what's good about them is a little more accessible. Sometimes to buy and flip a house, it might cost more. You have to put in, 100,000, 200,000, and then sell it for more. I've done a lot of mobile home deals where I bought it for like 35,000, put in 20, and then sold for 110. So the
Wow.
prices are a little more accessible. I'd say pretty similar for condos. Same sort of basic fundamentals. But that's how I look at it.
That's great. That's really, really nice. The there was one other thing I wanted to touch on, and it's really understanding, and I feel like for someone who's just getting into the business, someone who's maybe thinking about doing their first flip,
Mhm.
and they're not really sure what they should associate costs when it comes to getting a deal, in terms of buying a house for X, putting a certain amount into it, and a lot of people forget about the holding costs,
Mhm.
and I feel like they should keep that in mind. Do you have a way of using a formula of budgeting of how you should figure out to do a deal? And if your contractor says it's going to cost X, do you budget a certain like safety fund and all that other stuff?
No, these are really good questions. I think the biggest formula I use to buy properties is the 70% rule. For your listeners who are not aware of it, it's 70% ARV minus repairs. And ARV is after repaired value. So you essentially look at comps. A lot of your listeners are probably realtors. They know like what can you sell it for once it's all fixed up. That's your ARV. So 70% ARV minus repairs is the formula you buy on. And if it meets those numbers, then you're good to go. That's a deal. I
Got
like
it.
to make
So
it
so just
simple.
so just to be clear, so you're saying if you make $100,000 on this deal, after all the costs and everything, and you sell for 100K profit, you're saying just take 70% of that and subtract your costs. That's how much money you should save.
Something like that. So let's run it through some numbers and hopefully that'll
Yeah.
explain. So
Give us an
let's say your
example.
end price you can sell it for is 100,000. So that's your
Okay.
ARV, like after repaired value, after it's all fixed up, what it's going to sell for. That's 100,000. And let's say your repairs to get it there are 10,000. So it'd be 100,000 times zero point 0.7 minus 10. So really your max offer is 60,000. So 100 times zero point 0.7 minus 10, 60,000. So anything below 60,000 is a deal. So if someone offers you that house for 40, take it. If someone offers that house to you for 50, still a good deal. If someone offers you that house for like 80, not a deal. Not a deal by the numbers. The thing is, you want to get the formula as simple as possible, just like you're saying, where withholding costs, like property taxes, property insurance, like there's so many numbers that go into like your expenses and into the deal. You just want to keep it as simple as possible. So I just use 70% rule and it accounts for everything.
Got it. Got it. Got it. So you're accounting that into the cost even without actually getting the official numbers down pat. That actually makes
Exactly.
sense.
Exactly.
So I feel like everyone kind of wants to know how you even decided to continue flipping during COVID, and if you had any struggles with going to see property or anything like that. Like I know you were in Florida, and Florida opened pretty quickly, but I wanted to maybe touch on that a little bit. Like how was it during COVID? Were there more deals? Were there less deals? And why don't you just take from there?
Oh, for sure. So what was interesting is we had a couple like deals on the market, and for the most part, up until like things started to shut down, like things were still selling. Like we would list something, and then within 2 days we get an offer, get it under contract, which was great, just fantastic. But and then Corona hit, and I think I was like a lot of people where I was thinking because of it's going to slow down the market. So if you told me before Corona started, like, hey, because of this, the market's going to heat up, I would have called you crazy. Like there's no way. If you told me back in March, like this is impossible. It's going to slow down. Obviously, a pandemic's going to slow down the real estate market, but it didn't, and it sped it up. And what's interesting with me being a flipper, I'm on both sides of the transaction. So I need to buy a house and then I need to sell a house. And I always say that me as a flipper, like it's always the same amount of difficulty. So it's either really easy to buy and hard to sell, or really hard to buy and easy to sell. And I've seen as the market has progressed this year for 2020, I've seen it's been more of the latter, where like inventory is really low, it's hard to get a deal. But as soon as you get a deal out there on the market, like it's going to sell quick. Multiple offers, it's going to sell quick, all that good stuff. So that's really been my experience. So it's, I'd say, just about the same amount of difficulty. It's just shifted in terms of difficulty. So that's what I've been experiencing. So still getting deals, but it's tougher. The people I work with, like wholesalers, getting a deal is tougher. Like me trying to get a deal is tougher. But that's really been my experience so far with Corona.
Got it. And I feel like for all the agents who are most of my audience are going to be real estate agents
Mhm.
or people thinking about becoming real estate agents. When it comes to generating the types of deals that you're looking for, obviously the one way is doing it is finding a property that's on the market, working with wholesalers. But do you do any advertising for yourself to try and go and find deals? Do you cold call? Do you run Google ads, Facebook ads? Do you do any of that stuff?
I do. So I primarily cold call. That's where I've seen the most success. I've tried a lot of stuff. I've tried Facebook ads. That went well. I haven't tried Google ads, but I've heard really good things about it. So I've tried a ton of stuff, but I've seen the most success with cold calling. I'm in a smaller market, so it's less competitive. So cold calling still works really well. One of the few people still doing it. And it's also a relatively cheap way to get deals. So it's still, it still works, still is effective. So
Got
that's
it.
what I've been doing so far. And then just working with folks, and it's going good so far.
So yeah, I actually hear that. I'm a big cold caller. When I first got into the business, I just circle prospect. That was kind of my thing. And I would say towards the end of my first year, I really focused on Facebook advertising,
Hmm.
like heavily, and I got very great results in terms of getting buyer leads. Seller leads was a little tough because it was right when Facebook changed their algorithm,
Oh.
where like they created the special ad category.
Hmm.
Because beforehand you were able to just target homeowners, and you could type in income level, age, gender. And so when I first started doing these ads, it took me about a month to figure out with this new housing category, because you had to target in a 15-mile radius. 7-minute drive from Manhattan, so I don't want New Yorkers. Like, I want only New Jersey sellers.
Hmm.
And I started realizing that people wanted an offer on their house. Like, they want cash offers. So the first ad I ever ran was, "We buy houses for cash in New Jersey."
Oh, nice.
And people would fill out their name, email, phone number. I'd call them up. I'd be like, "Hey, I have a buyer for your house. He's offering, I think it was like 60 to $100,000 under asking price. Like, if the house is worth 500, they were offering four,
Okay.
right? Because the house maybe needed 20, 30,000 into it. Um, and every single time, all the sellers would say, "Oh, that's too low. We're not interested." And then 2 days later, I'd call them back and say, "Hey, just wanted to follow up. Would you be interested in listing it with me for normal market value?"
Hmm.
And a lot of the time people would say, "Oh, we're just thinking about it." Because, like, again, I was brand new in the industry, but I was like, well, this will eventually pay off. And slowly but surely, the advertisement started to work, where I ended up picking up a listing, got it sold in 4 or 5 days. And I ended up just continuing to run these ads, but I ended up starting running ads for agents, and it took over their business. And I feel like the one thing about advertising, which I'm sure you understand, is that when you advertise on social media as an unbranded company or brand, where you're just saying, "We buy homes cash in the state," and you're just running an ad under that name, a lot of people will fill it out. And then you or someone else on your team can call them and just screen that lead, give them that offer. And then 2 days later, an agent can call them and be like, "Hey, are you interested in selling your house?" And it's a great way for an agent to end up picking up some listings
Hmm.
when you're ending it when you're offering them cash for their house. Obviously, some will take that deal. I assume, but most of them are going to want more money for their house. So
Yeah.
I actually really enjoy running Facebook campaigns. I would tell you to definitely get back into it. It's definitely worth it. Um,
Have to. Yeah, for sure.
but um, but yeah, so I really like that 70% rule, and the fact that you were able to flip in COVID. But I really want to discuss building a team around the flipping, and I assume that having a local agent is something that's a good relationship to have as a flipper. So what would you tell agents who are listening of how they should go about connecting with an investor like yourself in a market where they're trying to build that relationship to either get info on flipping, or just building a relationship with that investor so that they could possibly get some listings down the road?
Hmm. Yeah, I think the biggest thing there is just to really understand the language of the investor. So when I say stuff like ARV and those types of terms, like, what's going on, like, and understand like what I'm going through. Or if you better understand my situation, what I'm trying to accomplish as a flipper, you're going to have a better bit of success with me. If, getting listings and just working together in general, because it is really helpful for me. I do decent volume here in Florida, in Gainesville, but it is always helpful to have an agent or someone you can call on, get a second opinion, or just get their help. Like, hey, what do you think of this price? What do you think of this neighborhood? So it's always good to get that sort of thing. So that's what I recommend first, is just to make sure like you understand their language, like you understand what they're going through, and you can like fill in the gap and fill in the need there. There is a big benefit to working with investors. So for example, if you were to be listing my stuff, you'd get 20 listings per year, like selling it. So not bad at all. So you'd have someone, not just like a one-off home seller, but someone who's coming back consistently. So there's a lot of value in that. So that's the first thing I'd say. Other thing I'd say, if you actually want to meet investors, I'd go to like local real estate investor meetups. RIAs is what they're called, REIAs. That's a really good start. Meetups are really good to start.
Just go to meetups.com. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So just to start networking, and investors meet with other investors. So if you can connect with some of those people, and then always you can ask for referrals. Maybe if that person's not a good fit, they know somebody who is a good fit who would need your help. Because for me, with the investors in Alachua County, in my area, I'd say I know a lot of the real players. So a lot of the people who are actually doing this and doing this full time. There might be some people who do like one deal a year. I don't know them, but the people who are doing this full time or who are more active, I'm pretty familiar with them. So if you get into that network, you get into that circle, there's going to be a lot of potential there for you.
That's really cool. Have you ever partnered with any of these local investors? Like, do you see that there could possibly be something down the road where like do you think investors like networking with each other, and that it's something that should be praised as opposed to be like, I don't want to talk to them kind of mentality?
I think it should be praised. It's one of those things, like I'm not tapping out my market. So I'm doing like 20 a year, and who knows how many flips there are, like real potential deals there are, maybe 100, 500. Even if I wanted to, I couldn't take down all the deals. So I always look at it, instead of competitive, it's very cooperative. So if the pie is that big, or the pie is massive, and I'm getting a small, couple crumbs off of it, it doesn't make sense to be competitive, like, hey, these are my crumbs, or hey, this is my little slice of the pie. It makes more sense to just to work together. I've worked with some flippers here, and like we've never run into each other. Like it's almost never happened that we're both working on the same deal. Or like we're trying to convince the same seller. It's pretty rare, just because there's so much, there's so much going on. And sometimes it's like, I don't make the same connection with the seller, or I don't make the same connection with the person, but the other flipper, other real estate investor does. So, all more power to them if they get the deal. So that's how I look at it. It's cooperative.
That's great. I also when I thought about it, when I first got into the business, people thought it was like, why are you trying to connect with all these real estate agents and lenders? I was like, well, you can never have enough connections. I was always told, your network is your net worth. Right? Where the more people you know, the more business you could do down the road. So when it came to real estate, I wanted to know every agent in my area, because if they have a listing, I want an email saying they got a new listing. And I want to be able to share that with my buyers and my sellers. And I feel like when it comes to real estate investing, I feel like it's actually a huge benefit to be connecting, especially as a newer investor, with all the investors in that current state, because it's a great way for you to bounce ideas off of them, and really like form like a mastermind with all of these investors in the area, where I feel like it's a great place to start a podcast if you want to start an investor podcast, investing in this town, and you guys are all just talking about the area. I feel like it's a great idea, and like really letting people know that like what you're doing isn't necessarily trying to raise the prices of homes, but really trying to just make homes look nicer and make them look pretty for people who are thinking about buying homes. So I feel like investing nowadays is deemed as like cool, but like back in the day when people were gentrifying areas, it was frowned upon, because it was like people can't afford to live there anymore and stuff like that. And I actually feel like nowadays it's getting the credit it deserves, I feel like.
I think so. I mean, who knows how long? I feel like it goes in waves, comes and goes, where it's very cool, and then it gets out of fashion, and then it's cool again. So we'll see how it shakes out. But yeah, I'm with you there. It's a lot of people want to get into it. You know, a lot of people see like the HGTV shows, especially for flipping.
Yep.
They're like, "Yep, I want to do this. It's so cool." They make it look so easy, and they get into it. And
Especially when they say you could do it with no money.
right,
Like that's how they hook you. They say no money, no credit. They're like, I'm sold. And then that's how they get you into it. But yeah, I always tell people, I was like, we have as much land as we're ever going to have on this planet, and it's the one commodity that's never going, that's only gonna, like there's only so much of it, so you might as well buy it as much as you can. Real estate also is the only investment in history that's made the most millionaires. So I
that's
think
really
right
good.
I think right off the bat, that in itself should just tell you that it is the most proven way to invest your money in an asset, over the course of the lifetime of the planet. So I appreciate you coming on the podcast, man. This was great. I feel like my listeners got tons of information on this. Uh, just so everybody knows, Victor runs a course, and I'll let you talk a little bit more about that.
Oh, for sure. So I do two things. So I flip houses myself full time, but I also teach people how to flip houses. So if you're interested, so what I do, I help people get their first deal and then get to six figures flipping houses. And I basically, you know, I do what I teach, and I teach what I do. And obviously it works because I'm out there doing it, and I'm pretty transparent with like the deals I'm working on, and like the profits I'm making. And I just basically teach people how to do it and get started for themselves. A lot of people want to get into it and with flipping. And I think one of the regrets I had is because I didn't really have a flipping mentor. I just kind of did it on my own and lost a lot of money through trial and error. So I wish I had that mentor, you know, when I was getting started specifically for the flipping. So that's what I offer now. So if folks are interested in getting a hold of me, probably Facebook is the best way. If you search my name on Facebook, Victor Yurchek, you'll see me. Pretty unique name, so you can't miss it.
There you go.
And then just connect with me. I have a free Facebook group, but that's pretty much it. I help people, you know, who are looking to get started flipping. And a lot of my clients, actually, a lot of my students are realtors, so they want to not only, you know, make commissions buying and selling properties, but they want to take down some properties and fix and flip them themselves and not miss out on the opportunity there is.
All right, that sounds great. Well, I want to thank you again. I'm going to leave a link in the description, guys, for you to connect with Victor on Facebook. And just one point, real quick, because you just touched on it, where when real estate agents want to invest in real estate, I found this out a couple months ago. But supposedly, if you're a licensed real estate agent, you're allowed to use your commission on the deal as part of your down payment. Where the commission doesn't even get split with your broker. You can literally just designated towards the down payment of the home. So it's another good perk for you agents out there thinking about doing some flips. So again, Victor, thank you so much for coming on. Congratulations on the 20 flips in 2020 during COVID, and hope you do many more in 2021, and hope to have you on again, man. This is great.
Fantastic. Hope to be on in the future, and appreciate it again for inviting me.
Anytime, man. See you on the next one, guys.